Welcome back to Talking Papers Faceless Podcast. It's your host, Shaquille Anasa. Glad to have you with us for another deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
Every Monday and Thursday, remember. We're exploring ideas that will really get you thinking,
The kind that stick with you.
Exactly. And today we're diving into a paper that really does that. It's called Personal Responsibility and Social Development, Implication for Global Ethics, written by Samuel Asuquo Ikanem. And, before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a comment.
We love hearing from you guys.
Yeah, definitely. Let us know what themes you'd like us to explore in future episodes. But all right, let's jump into this paper. It grapples with some big questions. How are choices, the ones we make each day? They ripple out and affect the world around us.
Especially in today's globalized society.
Right, exactly.
So much interconnectedness now.
So there's this huge emphasis on individual rights and freedom in our modern world.
Which is fantastic, of course.
For sure.
But Ikanem argues we need balance.
Oh, I like where this is going.
It's not enough to just focus on me and my rights. We have to think about the impact of our actions on others.
Right. It can't just be about me, me, me.
Exactly.
It's like that saying, with great freedom comes great responsibility.
You got it.
And Ikanem brings in some pretty heavy philosophy to back this up.
A bit of existentialism in the mix.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
He argues that true freedom, it's not just about doing whatever you want.
Right. There's got to be more to it.
It comes with the responsibility to make ethical choices.
Okay, so it's about aligning your actions with a moral compass.
Precisely.
And doing that consistently.
Even when it's difficult.
Even when no one's watching.
Exactly.
Because those choices have consequences.
They ripple out and shape the world around us.
This is reminding me of something Ikanem said about Boko Haram in Nigeria.
Oh, yes. That's a powerful example.
It's a stark reminder that these ideas,
they're not just abstract concepts.
they have real-world implications.
Absolutely.
Ikanem argues that a lack of personal responsibility, a failure to think about those consequences.
It actually contributed to the conflict.
Wow.
And it hindered societal progress in the region.
It's a heavy example, but it really makes you think about how individual actions, or inaction even, can have these huge ripple effects throughout society.
Absolutely. And this ties into a broader point Ikanem makes later.
Anarchy ethics.
Global ethics.
Okay, yeah, we touched on that earlier.
He acknowledges the vast diversity of cultures and values worldwide.
Right. The world is a tapestry.
But he argues that certain universal principles can guide us.
Towards what?
A more ethical global society.
Interesting. So even with all our differences, there's common ground.
Ikanem believes so.
Like what kind of principles?
Things like sharing respect, responsibility.
Yeah, those resonate across cultures for sure.
Even acknowledging different viewpoints plays a role.
That's a good one. Especially in today's world where everyone's got an opinion.
It's crucial to listen to understand even when we disagree.
I appreciate that perspective. It's about fostering dialogue, not shutting it down. Ikanem even uses an example of the Nigerian president being criticized.
Right, to illustrate that very point.
So it's about respecting diverse viewpoints, even those we might not agree with.
It's a key part of global ethics.
I'm really seeing those connections between individual actions and global ethics. What stood out to me was how Ikanem links personal growth
to the well-being of society as a whole.
Exactly. Like he uses that analogy of Plato's man writ large.
Ah, that's a fascinating one.
Right. It's the idea that society is a reflection of the individuals within it.
So if we want a better world,
we need to start with ourselves.
Cultivating personal responsibility in ourselves and those around us.
Okay, I love that. Before we dive deeper, just a reminder, if you're enjoying this deep dive, hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment.
We really appreciate it.
Your thoughts on this topic so far? We'd love to hear them.
Absolutely.
All right, let's keep going.
Yeah, it all comes back to personal growth, doesn't it?
It really does.
And that brings us to what I think is the core of Ikanem's argument. He outlines these 4 classifications of responsibility.
4?
Yeah, 4. He talks about moral agency responsibility as a virtue retrospective responsibility and prospective responsibility.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Let's break it down.
Sure.
Starting with moral agency.
Okay, so moral agency. It boils down to recognizing that we have the capacity to make choices.
As individuals.
Right, as individuals.
We're not robots.
Exactly, we have free will.
And those choices have consequences.
Real, tangible consequences.
So it's about owning our actions.
Right.
Recognizing we have the power to make a difference.
You got it.
Not just reacting to the world, but shaping it.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Then there's responsibility as a virtue.
Okay, how's that different?
So think of it this way. It's about developing a character. where responsibility becomes second nature to you.
Like it's ingrained in you.
Exactly. It's not something you force yourself to do. It's just who you are.
It's part of your DNA.
You could say that.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's about consistently making responsible choices.
Yeah.
Not just when it's easy or convenient.
Right. It becomes one of your core values.
I like that.
Now let's move on to the retrospective and prospective parts.
Retrospective and perspective.
Yeah.
Those sound interesting.
They are. So retrospective responsibility, it's all about accountability for our past actions.
Looking back.
Exactly.
So when things go wrong.
We ask ourselves, who's responsible? What led to this outcome?
So it's about taking ownership.
Absolutely.
Even when it's uncomfortable.
Even then.
Because that's how we learn from our mistakes.
Right, and how we make things right if we need to.
It's easy to point fingers.
Oh yeah, blame everyone else.
But taking ownership is crucial for growth.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, what about prospective responsibility?
So this one focuses on our duties and obligations moving forward.
So not the past, but the future.
Exactly.
What are we responsible for doing?
It could be fulfilling our commitments, taking care of loved ones, contributing to our community.
All those things we should be doing.
Right, the things we're obligated to do.
Okay, I see. So we've got these 4 classifications. Moral agency responsibility as a virtue retrospective, and prospective responsibility. It seems like they're all connected somehow.
Oh, they absolutely are.
We need to recognize our agency, make responsibility part of who we are, learn from our past mistakes, and be mindful of our duties moving forward.
You nailed it. Ekanem argues that this holistic view of responsibility, it's essential for social development.
Okay, so it all ties back to society.
Right back to that idea of society being man writ large.
Individual moral development being the foundation for a thriving society.
Precisely.
If everyone's just focused on themselves, it's hard to imagine things working well.
It's a recipe for chaos.
Everyone pulling in different directions.
No sense of unity.
And Ekanem connects this to the challenges facing Nigeria.
Specifically with Boko Haram.
Right, he argues that a lack of personal responsibility contributed to the instability and hindered progress.
It's a reminder that these aren't just philosophical ideas.
They have real consequences.
Absolutely. And it leads us to Ekanem's call for a global ethic.
Remember we talked about those universal principles?
Sharing responsibility, acknowledging different viewpoints.
Right.
Ekanem believes these can help us bridge divides.
And create a sense of interconnectedness.
On a global scale.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Yeah.
But how do we put these principles into practice?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Ekanem doesn't have a simple answer.
I figured.
But he emphasizes the importance of dialogue.
Talking to each other.
Understanding each other. And a willingness to learn from each other.
Even when we disagree.
Especially when we disagree.
Recognizing our shared humanity while respecting our differences.
That's the key.
Okay, so it's about moving beyond that me versus them mentality.
And embracing a more inclusive we perspective.
We're all in this together.
Exactly. And that brings us right back to individual choice.
Even though we're talking about global issues,
change starts at the personal level.
It always does. Before we go deeper into that, quick reminder to our listeners. If you're enjoying this conversation, hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing how these big global ideas connect back to us as individuals.
It's all about personal transformation, isn't it?
And recognizing that we all have the power to make choices, to, be better.
Exactly. Ekanem talks about developing responsibility as a core value.
And holding ourselves accountable.
Which can be tough.
Oh, for sure. But it's so important.
It's about taking charge of our lives.
Instead of playing the blame game.
Right. Not expecting others to fix everything.
It's about being proactive.
Exactly. And not just avoiding negative actions.
But actually looking for ways to contribute to a better world.
Using our talents and skills to make a positive impact.
I love that. It's about shifting from why isn't anyone doing something
to what can I do?
Exactly. Taking ownership.
And, it doesn't have to be some grand gesture.
Right. It's about those everyday opportunities.
A simple act of kindness.
Standing up for what's right.
Volunteering your time.
It all adds up.
Those small actions can create a ripple effect.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of global challenges.
Oh, absolutely.
But remembering that our actions matter. It's empowering.
It is. It gives us a sense of agency.
And we have to remember how interconnected we all are.
Our choices impact others, whether we realize it or not.
It's true, like thinking about the environmental impact of what we buy.
Or advocating for social justice.
Our actions are woven into the well-being of others.
We're all part of this delicate web.
And that brings us back to Econom's point about global ethics.
It's about recognizing our shared humanity,
While respecting our differences.
moving beyond that us versus them mentality.
And embracing a more inclusive we perspective.
Exactly, we're all in this together.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Econom's work, we wanted to leave you with a question. How can you apply these concepts to your own life?
What small step can you take today to make a positive difference?
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Leave us a comment and let us know.
And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, remember the power to create a better world. It starts with each of us. Thanks for listening to Talking Papers Faceless Podcast.
We'll see you next time.